This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
Welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. My name is Adam. I am your host. I did want to remind everyone to definitely check out last week's episode with Trishana Eloise. It was a super awesome episode. She was 2024 International Model of the Year, really carrying a great message about her growth and her struggles growing up and how she came out on top at the end. Additionally, I do invite you all to just review. That would help me to reach a broader audience so that others can be motivated and inspired to get through the hard times in their life and come out on the other end with lessons and growth and the opportunity for their story to empower others as well. Today, I'm super excited actually to have my friend Austin Glazer on. Austin, I met about a little more than a year ago, and our energies are very similar. He is a top insurance agent here running Safe Shield Insurance out of Chappaqua, correct? Out of Chappaqua, New York. But aside from that, Austin also has such an inspiring story, and just the self-made component of his story is just super, super inspiring, and just he's just a great person to talk to. Austin, thank you so much for coming, bro.
Thanks for having me. Tough act to follow, the International Model of the Year. Is that what you just said?
I did.
Well, I'm the international insurance guy of the millennium, and it is nice to meet you all.
Yes. Dude, it's so funny because, I think I first collided with you when we were just at networking events.
No, I think it was actually when you hit up Mike and I for the Connect CTNY event.
Yeah.
You sat us down in the office. I hated you for a brief minute there or two. I almost said to Mike, I said, dude, let's just get the fuck out of here. I don't even want to do this, but I'm so glad
That's
we did.
so funny.
You knew it. I was basically telling you I hated you on the spot.
But the first time was when the first time I met you was when you were introducing Safe Shield.
You were at the January 6th
J
event.
House.
Yeah.
Something
else happened on that January 6th. That was
Was that the same day?
Yeah, the January 6th of storming the Capitol. That happened the day that I announced my company. So.
Hey, listen, really?
Yeah, so that'll forever overshadow Safe Shield Insurance's launch day.
Hey, whatever.
But you're right. That is the first time I met you. Thanks for coming.
That is the first time I met you, and you did the Superman with the Safe Shield.
Yep.
And you talked about your journey. And that was super cool. And that's the reason why I was like, all right. And I reached out to Mike and I was like, let's do something when an opportunity came to host an event at Equinox. I do remember that first meeting.
Oh, my God.
And it's so funny that you talk about that because I do think the feelings were mutual because I don't think we knew what to expect from each other.
Yeah, but that event ended up being great.
Yeah, that was fun.
I met a lot of powerful people that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got a free week at Equinox. Come on. What could be better?
Yeah, you were there every day.
I was twice a day.
But I remember, that first time we met, I think we both were kind of feeling each other out. You're right. I was getting those vibes from you. You probably were getting the vibes from me also. But what turned out to be that one meeting, and honestly, that's great that we didn't judge each other off first impressions because our friendship has grown since then.
I love you now.
Yeah, dude. I think it came to just getting to know each other, which was a big reason why I wanted you here, bro. I think your story is super powerful. I did want to touch upon it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important for my audience to know where you came from. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll break it down in pieces. I'll allow you to ask as I go. So I'll just sort of give you the high level and then you pick and choose what you want from there. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So hi, I'm Austin, the insurance guy Glazer. I'm the owner and founder of Safe Shield Insurance, which is a full service insurance brokerage designed to help you live a safer life. But before there was Austin, the insurance guy, there was just Austin Glazer. I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, up until I was in 8th grade. It was at that point that a family business unfortunately went under, and we were forced to move to Florida overnight. We went from having the most unbelievable houses, cars, lifestyle to living in a rented home with rented cars, and it was really going from the top and going to the bottom.
Was that your family business?
Yeah, my dad's family business, yep.
Okay.
Unfortunately, after that, We were there for a bit, struggling to make friends, big school. I lived in Parkland, Florida. We went there because it was just a way cheaper cost of living.
That was where the shooting was, correct?
Mm-hmm. I went to high school there. Another thing that was overshadowed, they took the
I don't know about overshadowed.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, it's so unbelievable. Like, you say you went to school in Parkland. It's like, oh, that's where the shooting was.
Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy. I often think about that because, like, of course, like, it's such like a crazy thing to say, but it's like, hey, I went to school there, and it's like, oh, that, like, everybody thinks of it. Oh, that's where the shooting was. And that's a crazy thing, unfortunately, that's happened now in the world. Like, when a major life event happens, like, that becomes what it's known for.
Yeah. Like Sandy Hook.
Just like Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
So I lived in Florida for about 2 years. And about a year into that, my mom had gotten a job for the first time. She was working at Macy's, killing it, learned she was good at sales. She was diagnosed with brain cancer, glioblastoma. I think I'm saying that correctly, stage 4. She was given 3 months to live. She died. And growing up, I was a big time mama's boy. Like, everything I had was done by her. I don't think I even bought a pair of clothing before she died. When she died, my father said, fuck this, I'm out. I don't want to be a parent. He was like getting married within 2 weeks of my mom like dying, which is unbelievable. So, to give you the highest level version after that, he put me up for adoption. I bounced around for 6 or 7 different houses until eventually my aunt and uncle in Westchester, New York, Harrison, took me in. And, my uncle said from the very highest level, we'll give you support, we'll give you shelter, we'll give you food, but boy, the rest is on you. And I got to tell you, that was the biggest lesson. And he is the biggest inspiration for what I've become, because he taught me the value of hard work. He taught me, he took someone that was so broken, right? Because I had lost my mom, I had lost everything I had. And he basically forced me to have a blank slate. And from there, he really gave me nothing besides food and shelter. Listen, if I really needed it, I'm sure he would have given it to me. But I went on and worked like 3 or 4 jobs through high school. I was delivering pizzas, like, you name it, I was doing it, dude. I would put myself through college. While I was in college, I was working 6 jobs to get by. I was selling textbooks. I was working for an advertising company. I was working for the Oswego Telefund. I was like calling alumni. And eventually I decided I wanted one job, started interning for Liberty Mutual. It went really well, and push came to shove. I eventually became an agent. I went on to become the number 9 agent in the country within 2 short years. I was also countrywide rookie of the year, top producer within that span. And to tie it all together, the reason I'm no longer there is about 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago, I realized that, listen, the world is your oyster. And I was fortunate enough that, I think that we'll talk more about it, but nonetheless, what happened is I decided to follow my vision. I had built Austin the Insurance Guy up to the point where I believed I could stand on my own and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I did it. And now Safe Shield Insurance is a household name. And that's why sometimes when I come on these podcasts, it's funny to tell this story, because at this point, it's so far removed. And there's been so many new things that have happened. And I just told you the highest level possible. But, and I'm sure we'll dive into it further. But that is a high level understanding of who I am from a brushstroke version of Austin the Insurance Guy. Yeah.
You talked about a lot there. There's been a lot of change in your life, like, that was imposed on you. And starting with just when you were 8 years old, and you had to relocate in the environment that you
16 years old, but yeah.
16 years old when you left Long Island?
No, I'm sorry. I was in 8th grade. What was I, 13 years old at that time? 14.
Okay, so you're 14 years old when you watched your dad's world crumble, and they're in yours as well. And then having to make that geographical change, especially at 14.
Such a young age, yeah.
Dude, that's like freshman year in high school?
Yep.
So what was that like? Like if you had to look at that moment again, where do you think the long-lasting impact of that change and just the complete transformation?
It's a great question, Adam. I think that, and this is something I haven't really talked about too much on podcasts, but like, my life in Long Island, New York was insane. May my mom rest in peace. So my family were the keeping up with the Joneses. They had the nicest cars, the nicest purses. Our house was unbelievable. But the reality is we were living so beyond our means. There was no financial planning in place. Okay. And the reality is, when my father's business crumbled, it was because of '08. But, a little bit of that was self-imposed.
Yeah.
Right. And, as I go through life now, and we'll talk about the adaptation to Florida in a second, but as I go through life now, every major life decision in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh shit, am I going to turn out like my parents? Like literally, I sat down with you today and I'm talking to you how I'm thinking about buying a new car. Car's $50,000. And in my head, I'm like, fuck. Like, is this the correct financial decision? I don't want to be like my parents and have 9 cars and change a car every month, because the reality is, whether they were in the right financial position or not, they were not in the right financial position. And whether I am or not, in the back of my mind, I'm so nervous that financially, I didn't have the literacy that I needed growing up. So I look at that time in my life as one of the most pivotal moments to who I've become today, because every financial decision I make, I carefully weigh, because I don't want to end up like them. My goal is financial freedom at a very young age. And, the second lesson that I learned from that time is obviously moving, right?
Yeah. In the moment, were you angry?
Of course I was. Yeah. Of course I was very angry. I mean, I had so many friends in Long Island where I was from. I mean, I was in this amazing community. I'm still friends with a lot of those guys to this day. Actually, 2 of them are coming from Long Island this weekend to play golf at my club. But you know what that taught me, Adam? A couple of things. The first thing it taught me, though, is that I was raised in a bubble, right? Long Island can be considered a bubble. And unfortunately, the way my mom raised me and all the kids around me, that was a bubble. And it took some time to realize that. But moving to Florida, like with a completely different demographic, I started to realize that there are things that exist outside of Long Island, New York.
Yeah.
And that put some hair on my skin and said, all right, go be you, right? The other lesson that in retrospect I've learned through that process, and I didn't learn this at the time, was everybody's going to have a deck of cards dealt to them. And however you play that deck of cards is what's going to matter the most, right? I in that instance, I may have been dealt 2 2s. But guess what? I played it like it was 2 kings.
Yep.
And that's so it was really hard. And, I'd say the move to Harrison was even harder. But that initial move to Florida was pretty crazy.
Dude, it's so funny that you mentioned like living in a bubble, because like that's something where we're sitting here in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yeah.
It is the epitome of bubble.
Right, but you know what's so crazy though? You're not a part of the bubble, and neither am I. Right, because we've had that. Like you've had your hardships that I'm aware of, and I've had my hardships that you know about. And the thing is that we are aware that there are things outside of this world than what exists just right here in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yeah,
and that is why sometimes I walk around with the word. It's not a chip, but it's almost like this 2 kings approach in poker, right? Because I feel that like I always have the ace in my back pocket because I've dealt with other things. And I feel that I can get through anything because I understand that a world exists outside of Greenwich, Connecticut. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really saying that I'm part of the bubble, because I know I'm not.
No, I know. Of course not.
But what I'm saying is that like I see a lot of people who are a product of that bubble.
And they don't even realize it.
And they don't, yes. They're very thinking that this is normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I almost feel bad for a lot. I feel bad for them. I genuinely feel bad for them, because once you leave this bubble and you go out into the real world, and the real world's like a very big, it's big.
Chew it up and spit you out.
It not only will it chew it up and spit you out, but like you need to be a good person. Like maybe in your bubble, you can rely on the connections you have and whatnot. But I think at the end of the day, and I think you see that a lot now, especially in the personal development space, where foundationally, like it's really working on what's internal and not just relying on whatever external resources you have, which I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying everyone, a lot of people do lean on, my dad is this guy, or, like I'm connected with this network and whatnot. And, and don't get me wrong, like, hey, listen, who helps. But if you don't also understand that there's a lot more to learn about the world in general, then I think you're really just kind of plateauing, where like, your path is set, and some people are okay with that, where it's like, like I inherit this business, I work it up, my kids inherit this business, and I live this same cookie cutter lifestyle generationally. Yeah. And for me, like, there are moments, bro, when I'm like, man, like I wish I had that.
Me too.
And then there are other moments where like, no, like, especially, of late, where it's like, I realize how much power there is behind my story, and how many people I could help with it. Where I'm like, no, like I have my own superpowers. I have my, there's things that I can do.
My own Batman, baby.
Fuck yeah, dude. And like, I think that's so cool. So you have this big move when you're 14. You're angry. There's probably a lot of other feelings you're feeling. Now you're entering this new environment. You're a Yankee down in Florida. That's what I know. I was just down south. They call me the Yankee. And what was that adjustment period like?
When moving to Florida,
Yeah, going to a new high school.
wasn't easy.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't easy. You know, that period in my life, though, a lot of it is blacked out. Just because it was a short period of time. I'd say moving to Harrison was even harder, though, because that was after my mom left. Like now, you know, at least you had my mom at the time, and I had like that cover when I was in Florida, right? Like you have your family life. You know, when I wrote my college essay, I wrote this very powerful line, which was that if change was good, so talking about when I moved to Harrison, if change was good, then I had a lot of good. New family, new friends, and a new life. And that was the reality. You know, I'd go to school, I was the new guy. I'd go home to my house with my aunt and uncle and their 2 kids. I was the new guy. Everything was new. That was a challenge. And that
Even though there was still family, it was like you were
it was
still
family, but it's different family. We weren't super close.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was a challenge.
What was it like for your mom? You know, like you moved down to Florida. She got diagnosed when you were in Florida.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure she felt some type of way towards your father as well. And now she gets diagnosed, and now you know, like that's a lot going on for a 14-year-old who's just trying to be normal and transitioning into a school. And now you kind of have to deal with that as well. And I know, like, you know, my mom also, same diagnosis. And I know, you know, leading up to it, like much of my household was my mom and dad's relationship was very like, he was the bread earner, she was the nurturer, and I don't know. They seemed happy, but from the outsider, like I also looked at it as like not ideal. You know, like when they fought, it got ugly.
Yeah.
You know, so like I witnessed a lot of things where I'm like, that's not right. But like if that's how they are, that's how they are. But then she got sick. What was like that for you and the family dynamic?
Yeah, my parents, I think they hated each other. I think that they were together for so long, though, that there was comfort in it. You know, a lot of what I've been going through these days with my own mental health, because I am a very big proponent of that, is realizing some of those childhood traumas that I experience and will continue to experience because of things that happened in my youth. You know, I think about instances of my dad yelling at my mom or my mom yelling at my dad, and I realized that some of them were very traumatic for me.
Yeah.
You know, when my mom got sick, my dad didn't want to be a part of it. And, you know, they were married, but my mom basically was set up with hospice at my grandparents' house, who lived right down the block. My uncles, I have 3 uncles, they all took turns flying down, and my brother did too. He lives in California. They all took turns coming to take care of my mom, and my dad was never there. You know, I remember I was smoking a lot of pot at the time, and my dad found a bong, and he was like, "You can't go see your mom now," as if like that was a valid punishment. Right? Like my mom's dying and you're not going to go let me see my mom. Like that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So I bought a bike and rode 30 miles to go see her every single day, you know? And I was like, fuck you. There's no way you're going to tell me what I can and can't go do when it comes to this. And that was where a lot of the resentment towards him started. You know, there's belief in my own head that he cheated on my mom for a very long time. Of course, I'll never know the answer. He's still alive.
Yeah.
He's been married 7 times now since. 4 or 5 of them have died. Yeah, some fucked up shit. He'll call me every 3 months, try to get me back in his life, and he just says this crazy shit to do it. And it's he's a damaged person, and I don't hold any hate or resentment towards him. And everybody's like, you can't hate him, and I don't. Right? I've done lots of therapy to understand that I don't hate him. But what I do though is I understand that he's not good for me.
Hard.
Right? I've worked hard enough in my life and on my own mental health journey to realize that bringing someone like that into my life and where I'm at on my journey is just not a good idea. And, you know, to piggyback all the way to say what that was like when my mom was sick, I mean, it was terrible. You know, my mom, when she got sick, she knew it was ending and she became a little bitter. My mom was the type of person where she always wanted me to be with my friends, always. She wanted me to be social, having the best time. It was never about her, always about me. She made sure my glass was full before hers was full. And there's, you know, I've had this conversation with a few people. You know, it's important in life that you make sure that your own oxygen mask is secured before the others, right? And my mom never did that. And unfortunately, I found myself in relationships in the past where I have found myself doing that. I will make sure their oxygen mask is full before mine. And that's bad. So, I know the question was about what was that like, but I'm more so giving you the results of what I witnessed and how they're affecting my life now. So that's what I see.
Dude, I love that. No, I really love that. And
I'm really trying to get really in tune with myself these days.
Dude, I love that because you touch upon so many things that like I could just like identify with. I mean, for me, yeah, like my dad, it was different because like when my mom got sick, like he stepped up, like, he really did. I had a lot of issues with my dad and a lot of anger, and in that moment he did step up like so much, and he was there for my mom. But like watching my mom kind of fade away was one of the hardest things I could ever do.
Yep.
And I remember the last moment that I remember very vividly, because like when she really started deteriorating, it was very much a blur for me. It was the day that she was getting a tracheotomy. At that point, like she wasn't breathing well, and I was the one who was there with her that day. And, like I remember like right before she went in, she was like, I love you. Like, this is going to be okay. That's what she was trying to reassure me, and then she comes out and she's got she's tube out of her neck. And, like in that moment, I didn't realize it. But one of the gifts that I have from that moment was I was the last person to hear her voice.
I have something similar.
Which is like, it's so crazy where like, like in the moment it's like miserable, like, but like I didn't look at it from like my mom gave me the gift of me being the last person to hear her. And I think that's all about like perspective and how you want to look at it in hindsight and reflection. And same thing with you, like working on it in therapeutics, in therapy. But like, I love that you shared that, like, yeah, now it's like you become more just in tune with what you're feeling, and that you've been working on that. But what was your story that was similar?
No, very, very similar in the fact that when my mom was actually in legit hospice, like where they knew it was like the final couple days, my dad and I were there on a Saturday night, and we were leaving, and my dad was like, let me go find the nurse and we'll leave. He goes, come out when you're ready and we'll go. And I took my mom's hand. And like I said, I can't emphasize this enough, because people see me now as this really strong, independent business owner, entrepreneur. This guy didn't exist when my mom was here. He really didn't. Like, I was the most reliant and dependent person you could ever meet. And my mom was in hospice. She was pretty much in a coma at this point. I took her hand. I said, Mom, it's okay. You can let go. I'll be fine. I don't know how. And I chuckled, or I probably didn't chuckle at the time, but I go, I'll be fine. Go be in heaven, watch me, we'll be good. And guess what? The deepest thing I ever share, and I believe this, I've said this to some family members, I believe that if my mom had stayed alive, I don't think that I'd be in the position that I'm in these days. Because I think that everything that happened to me made me who I am, and it gave me the drive to be great. And one of the expressions that I often say is that I feel like my mom cashed in her chip on me. She had one chip, and her chip was, if I go, Austin will make something of himself. Now, she didn't know for sure, and that's why gambling is a gamble. But I believe that she cashed in her chip to make me be great. And for that reason, I will always be thankful that I was the last person. Now, I didn't get to hear her voice, but I will always be the last person that got to hold her hand and say, hey, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but I'll be fine.
Dude, it's so crazy because, like, I do think that, like, and it sounds like your mother the same way, was fighting for us.
For sure.
And, it was a similar situation with my mom, like on her last day, the night before. They were like, Ellie, where do you see yourself? Where do you see this going? And she wrote down, because she just had a pen and a pad, and she was like, I want to sleep in my own bed. And the doctor said, Ellie, that's not a realistic expectation at this point. And the next day she died in her sleep. Wow. And it's almost like, it was like her permission to say, like,
yeah, I'm good.
To like, listen, like, you don't need to fight anymore. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's also a testament to like how the mind is so goddamn powerful.
Yeah.
Because I think she was willing herself to continue to live. And then when she heard that wasn't feasible, she was like, well, then then if that's not an end game for me, then, I'm going to rest now.
Yeah.
And the same thing with your mom. Like, all she needed to hear was Austin's going to be okay. He's going to figure it out.
Well, that's what we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah. But I do believe that, because I do believe that like the mind is such a powerful thing, man. You know, like I think it can will people to just survive that extra time that, you know, they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
You know? So like, you know, you talked about how like now that you've been in this very self-reflective mode and you've been really working on working through things. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm very in touch with myself mentally. I don't think I've ever gone on record and said this on a podcast, but I do have bipolar disorder. I'm pretty medicated for it, which is something that's, you know, very treatable. You know, I've been on a journey the last few months, especially trying to figure things out. And I got off that for a bit, off that medication. They put me on an antidepressant and it really fucked me up. I got really, really depressed, really low. And truly, I lost myself. I was barely working all summer. I was barely even playing golf, which is my favorite thing in the world. I wasn't seeing friends, and I got really low. And the hardest thing I had to do was just crawl out of it, right? Like, because that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I have such a great support staff of my, like, not my people that work for me, but my friends, my family, and even some of my staff. Like, people that have been there to hold it down while I was going through what I went through. Because the reality is when you're going through these tough times, the only one that can pull you out of it, it's you.
Yep.
You are your only supporter at the end of the day. Everybody's going to support you, but to a degree.
Yeah.
You're the only person that can't give up on yourself.
Dude, I totally agree. And like, yeah, like, I mean.
But to tie it all together, I'm finally through it. I'm correctly medicated again. I've come out swinging. But I've come out swinging different than what I did in the past, because now I have a much different head on my shoulders. I did a lot of introspection during this time. And I learned a lot about, or remembered a lot about my childhood and some early on childhood traumas that I faced. And did I solve them all? Absolutely not. But, you know, I'm in therapy. I'm doing what I need to do. And that's all we can do in this life.
Yeah,
Nobody's perfect. You know, everybody fucks up somewhere along the lines. And I'll never hold it against my parents for, you know, doing certain things to me, because listen, nobody knows the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
Life is such a fucking journey.
Dude, it's so true. And like, you know, one thing that gives me a lot of peace when it comes to like what I would consider mistakes that my family made was, you know, maybe they were, you know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they were making the best decision with the information they had at the time.
Totally.
You know, and if I can justify that, whether it makes sense to me now, I'm like, okay, you know. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, you briefly brushed upon it earlier, was how like a lot of that has affected like relationships, and that you were in relationships and you caught yourself like acting a certain way, and now you can attribute it to things that happened to you earlier. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that in any relationship, depending on how you are as a person, your parents will shape the way that you treat your partner without you realizing it or not. And there are things you might do that you might think are normal but are not normal. And part of that introspective journey is figuring that stuff out.
Checking yourself.
And realizing that it's okay to be vulnerable. You don't have to wear this face on yourself at all times and say, I'm the king of the world, right? Because the reality is I'm not. I put on such a face, but the thing is that face is me. It's not me faking it or putting on a fake show. Like, this is who I am. I'm damn proud of what I've done.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking beast, right? But the reality is that everybody is on a journey and nobody is perfect. And that self journey, it never stops. You can never be like, all right, I'm good. I don't need therapy anymore. Everybody should be in therapy. And you should be actively working on yourself 24/7.
Dude, it's so awesome to like hear like your perspective and hear your story, and then know you for the man that you are now. And, you know, that's really what I want to dive into now, because you're right. Like when I first met you, I was like, Mike, who is this asshole?
Yeah, people think I'm a dick.
Yeah, and you know, it's clear to me that like within the last like year since I've known you, how transformational of a journey that you've been on. And dude, I'm like, I love it.
Yeah, I'd say there's been a big shift.
And you know, I think I don't know what it is, but like whatever you're doing, it's like the introspection and just like kind of the humility I also feel from you in this room, where it's like everything I did was earned. I worked my ass off, but you know, like I can appreciate it in just like the same way. And I love that.
The whole thing is growth. It's just like, you know, I think that the whole thing is growth. I mean, am I mad at myself for who I was or what I was doing? Not at all. I think that part of this journey is figuring it all out.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, am I like, you got to understand, and this is something I will drive home, in like business environments, I'm a different beast.
Yeah.
Like you have to be, because if not, my competition will be.
Yep.
So you will always see me as that cocky asshole in the business environment, and that's why I win.
Yeah.
But when someone actually takes the time and gets to know me, this is who I am.
Well, I think now like the way you're just regulating it, and like I feel like before you were just always in business mode, even and
yeah, I've definitely learned to shut it off.
And now you've become way better at shutting it off. And
because this is me. Like I think that I would give up business if it meant I could be comfortable in my own skin. I think that sometimes there were moments where I was ready to jump out of my own skin. Right? Because you're just so fucking cringe sometimes. You're like, ooh.
Dude, I think that's what threw me off in that first meeting, because Mike was like, this is my boy, Mike's my friend. So I thought we were walking into like a friendly atmosphere.
And I was in business.
And you were in fucking business mode.
By the way, I don't take back that attitude I had, because it was a fucking business. It was a networking.
It was. I totally get that. And I'm not asking you to take it back, but I did expect it to be a little looser.
Yeah, because I was tight.
It was just like a little, we were just fucking figuring out an event, you know? Mm-hmm. But I also like I walked away from that being like, hey, like I should take a page from his book in certain situations.
This guy knows what he's doing.
Well, in the sense that like I may not have liked him, but what he said made sense, and I still want to work with him because I think he will deliver on what he told me he was going to bring.
And we did,
and you did,
yeah.
You know, so like I didn't think anything you said was bullshit.
Yeah,
but I was, because the one thing I've always said to Mike, and I love Mike. And I love you, but you guys are opposites. And it's funny because I think that's why your dynamic works so well. And that was one of the things that I was just like, it was the first time I met you in a sit down environment, you know? So now like, you talked about your journey and everything. What are things that you do now? All right. So like what are things, because I know you take a lot of people under your wing. You built out your own team. On a professional level, who were the mentors there?
My brother Adam was a big one. And my mentor was this guy named Ian Anktel. I used to work for him. Okay. I was his assistant for a bit. But especially my brother Adam. He and listen, for a bit there, him and I did not see eye to eye when I left Liberty. He also works for Liberty Mutual. He's actually a newly minted Liberty Mutual Hall of Famer, which I would have been on track for. I mean, Adam and I, we fucking ran the gambit. I mean, we were on these trips around the country together. You know, he was 2 or 3 in the country. I was 9. Like, and I mean, we're talking, 20,000 agents. Like, we did it. We were the Glazer brothers. And he was my mentor, though. I mean, even when I was an intern at Liberty, like he came to the office one day, and it was just like my whole life. He has always been like my big brother that I want to be just like. And we don't always see eye to eye, for sure. I think these days we're past it a little bit because there's just like that mutual respect now. In terms of professionally, like I don't think he looks at me as his little brother anymore, which I don't want him to. Mm-hmm. I want to just be his little brother in life, and he was such a big mentor. He still is for me.
Yeah, he's based in California?
Yeah, he was in the Pacific Palisades down in Santa Monica. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he was a big mentor, as was Ian Anktel. This guy Ian took a chance on me. I was going back to college for my senior year, and I took the liberty and asked my manager to go shadow a rep for a day, and we were doing an on-site, meaning you were asking people to buy insurance at a table. And my manager said no, but he overheard and said, come with me for the day. I went, and I didn't know this, but he had an open position for a sales associate position, which was like a job paying $60,000 a year. But I was going back to college.
Like on his team?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was going back to college. So my manager showed up at the end of the day. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I came into work the next day, and they offered me a full-time position as a sales associate on his team. I was going back to college. I set up a desk in my literal dorm room above the bars that I'd go to, and I was slinging insurance. It was fucking unbelievable.
That's awesome.
And he taught me everything he knew. I mean, things like that I tell my new hires now, like think about things like a pyramid. Like Ian, if you're listening, he knows how grateful I am for him. But like, the things like we talk about, like a pyramid, right? Like, because in my business, it can get a little overwhelming with the amount of stuff that's going on at times, right? So when it comes to the pyramid, you're thinking, okay, at the top of pyramid is new business, second pyramid is service, third pyramid is busy work. And like, I channel that and teach that all the time. Another thing that Ian taught me was, when you try something, it might not work on the first go, but try it again later. Yeah. I mean, a great example of that is Closer Conversations. Closer Conversations first ran in 2020. It came back in 2024. That's the coolest fucking shit in the world, man. I mean, like, it's just like constantly trying shit, letting it work, saying, if it doesn't work today, it might work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And those are some of my two biggest mentors for sure.
I mean, one of the things that I admire you so much about in regards to this, like how you set up your business, was you learned everything that you needed to know about insurance at Liberty Mutual.
Yeah, for sure.
And you applied it and was like, hey, like I can do this on my own.
Wasn't that easy of a concept, but
no, I'm sure it wasn't. But you had the confidence just to make that decision.
I did not have the confidence.
No. Well, you faked it that you did. For sure.
Adam, I interviewed 37 different places and I got 32 offers. And one night at dinner, I'm sitting with a buddy and telling him where I'm thinking about going. I narrowed it down to 3 or 4 different places, different agencies.
Was this when you were doing Liberty?
This was when I was waiting to leave Liberty. This was probably
okay.
I don't want to go on dates because I don't, but this was before I left Liberty, right around that time. And, I'm interviewing, and I narrow it down to 3 or 4 places. I got to dinner with a buddy of mine and I said, dude, what should I do? He goes, how about none of those? You can go fucking do this yourself. I go, no, I can't. He goes, shut the fuck up. I swear to God. He goes, shut the fuck up and do it yourself. And I said, dude, I don't know. He goes, shut the fuck up and figure it out.
There you go.
And I mean, dude, the hardest, and I've told this story 1,000 times, but the hardest part about opening an agency or any business is literally just opening my doors. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. Opening the fucking doors. And once the doors got opened, it was great.
Yeah.
But until the fucking doors got open, boy, I mean, I was working so much. But, and another thing, I'm sure you'll ask about it, but like one of the key differences of owning a business versus working at Liberty Mutual, for example, is like, it's truly night and day. Like when I was at Liberty, like I was competitive. I wanted to win everything. It really wasn't about money because it's still not about money. It was about winning every fucking competition. So I would work. I knew every fucking dollar that was coming in my pocket. I knew every bonus. I knew how to get there. I knew how to win every contest. And I'd work like a maniac. Work was my life. And listen, I still am Austin, the insurance guy. That is still me. I will always be him. But work now is way different. Like I don't track what I sell. I just see the checks come in at the end of the month. I'm like, all right, great. Now am I selling less? Probably a little less, but I'm fucking happier. Yeah. I have the balance. I can shut work off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I don't need to win a fucking trip to Bermuda. I'll fucking pay for it myself.
Yeah.
And when I figured that out, that was a really big change for me. And then the other thing is, going from a producer to a business owner is a huge change, but
yeah,
I'll let you get there in the conversation and I'll tell you more about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I get that. I mean, it's scary kind of taking a leap. I mean, I did something very similar when I left Equinox, and it's also like certain things that you like weren't aware you had you become aware of very quickly. When like making that, you see, your story is highlighted by just like so many just abrupt changes. And I'm not saying that leaving Liberty Mutual was well thought up, but starting your own business wasn't. That was something that you had to be pushed to do.
Sure.
Now, like, what has it done for just like your headspace? Like when you were working at Lima, it seems like there was a lot of pressure because you just...
It was self-imposed pressure.
It was self-imposed pressure?
It was firmly self-imposed pressure. I mean, I was making, ridiculous money at the time. Ridiculous money. And then going to where I went now, it's like, there's ridiculous money in it, but like, it's based on the value of your insurance book, which takes time to build. So like, we're about 2 or 3 years in now, or 2 years in, I'm like pretty much back where I was, but like, it's working smarter and not harder.
Yeah.
I felt like, listen, Liberty Mutual was awesome. One of the best things I ever did in my life. I mean, I'm so grateful for everybody I met there, everybody I worked with. But I'm a different person now.
Yeah.
no longer am I the guy that's sitting at my desk for 12 hours a day. I refuse to do that. There are entrepreneurs out there that say they work fucking 12-hour days. I think they're fucking idiots. I think there's so much more in life than money. I was going to point that
out. Like the transition, you see all these reels, these guys like being like,
there's so much. How much money do you want to make? How's your family life? Is it good? There's only so much you can balance. And listen, I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. I love what I do. I'm so grateful to have found my passion on this earth. But again, I will never go back to being the person that works a 12-hour day, ever.
Yeah. No, dude, that's so funny it's just so funny that you say that in that way, because like, I talk to you and your approach is just like the reason why a lot of people jump into just like doing it on their own, because they're not, all their time isn't being committed to a corporation. I'm not going to say doesn't really care about you, but doesn't really care about you.
What, dude? I was a spoke on their wheel. They got rid of me as quick as they could. Yeah. Once I left,
okay. So I just didn't want to like.
Once they heard rumblings that I was leaving, I was out that fucking door.
Really?
Yeah. They got rid of me. I've never gone publicly and said that. They got rid of me. Well, they knew I was leaving. That's why. They knew I was leaving, and they wound up going through my emails and like finding something that I sent myself like 2 years prior and held it against me. And I was like, what? And it's because they want to get rid of you. So one, they don't have to give you a pension.
Yep.
And two, because they want to win. They want to prove to you that you're a spoke on their wheel.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest lesson of all. Listen, my passion and my impact on this earth is whatever I make of it. And I'll be fucking damned if it's working for the man.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah. And you're right. Like so many entrepreneurs are just like, I'm working like 18 hours a week.
What the fuck is wrong with them?
Then why did you leave a corporation where it's like you had health insurance, you had all these things. It's like, it's so funny, man. But I also do think a lot of that content that you see,
it's fake.
It's fake.
Yeah.
It's fake. And it's for likes and whatnot. You are big on social media.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on just content being produced to how much weight do you give to social media content
in terms of
just like personal development, like how like,
well, Adam, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for social media. You got to understand.
Yeah.
Austin, the insurance guy, was a spawn of an idea that nobody in my industry was using social media yet. I was fucking doing videos in my backyard with, hey, Austin, the insurance guy here. And it just kept growing and growing. And then I built the podcast, and that's how I became known.
Yeah.
Right. I only have 5,000, 6,000 followers on social media, but guess what? That's why I'm in my position that I'm in, because of Austin, the insurance guy. Yeah. That became a brand on its own. I bought the trademark and sold the entity to Safe Shield Insurance. That's how locked in I am. Okay, because the reality is I put a lot of weight on what you can do on social media.
Yes.
Now, the things I see on social media, I take with a grain of salt.
Okay.
But by the way, I'm the anomaly. Most people believe everything they see on social media. Now, listen, I'm never going to get on social media and tell you a lie. But if I'm on social media telling you that I'm the greatest insurance salesman you've ever seen, guess what? You're going to believe it. That's why I'm sitting here with you and you're telling me how good of an insurance salesman I are. You don't even have insurance with me, right? But that's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
And that's why social media is so freaking wild.
Yeah.
You believe what you see.
You believe what you see.
And if you do a good enough job, it catches on.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fucking cool that we have this tool at our fingertips where you can go, and it's just like, you know what I think it's so similar to? It's just like public speaking. It's just like giving a keynote.
It is.
I think it's the same exact thing, honestly.
I think it's a little different where, it depends on what you're speaking about. It depends on the subject matter. It depends on who your audience is. I think it also depends on how much truth you're telling.
Right.
I think that it's easier to exaggerate on social media than it is in person in front of however many hundred people. A lot of those stories you're going to tell are going to be organic because they're going to be able to see your body language. They're going to be able to see the way you move, and they're going to be able to see, really, really see like the passion in what you're speaking of when you're in person. I think any of that can be done with AI on social media.
We're in a pretty unique time where that stuff's going to start.
We're in a very unique time where that's stuff. And, that's something where, I look at a lot of the content being put on social media, and I love the things that the people who I know are putting up, you know what I mean? Because I know them. I know they're doing this. I just saw them. And, and now I'm really just trying to wean myself off of just people who I don't really know, I love, like, I don't believe a lot that comes out of social media. I get drawn to more vulnerable posts. I'm not gonna lie, where it's like, because I think when someone is sharing something bad that's happening to them, or I think it brings credibility to the rest, because it shows that they're willing to show the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think when I see people who are just celebrating wins, I kind of take what they say with a grain of salt, because I've also been in positions where I've met people who do that, and I sit there and like their life's in shambles and they're asking me for advice, and like I'm like, wait a second, that's not who I see on Instagram, So like I think that's where it's like such a like huge like zoo of different people and different experiences and validity is you kind of really have to carefully vet it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But like the whole purpose of this podcast really is to talk about purpose, and I really want to like kind of finish with a couple questions on that. Where, when did you really feel like you were purposely living?
I think that changes every few years, right? Because you hit a new chapter in your book and you're like, fuck, this is my best chapter yet. I'm really living now. Like when I won Countrywide Rookie of the Year for Liberty Mutual, I was like, fuck, this is the best chapter I've ever written. When I graduated college against all odds, I was like, damn, it's going to look good on paper in my book. Yeah. Kid who comes from nothing and gets out of college. Fuck, man, what a story. And then there's quitting your job, making $500,000 a year and starting over. Well, shit, that could be construed as a low point, but guess what? It sounds like I'm doing what I want to do while I'm here. And then there's also like getting your first office. And you're like, damn, fuck, man, I'm writing a bestseller.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a subjective question, right? When do I think like my peak was? I haven't hit it yet, baby.
Yeah.
You can count on that.
Not really when your peak was, as much as like, there's been periods.
When do I feel like I reached my potential?
No, not reach your potential as much as I've identified a purpose, and like that's like my North Star, where like like I can balance and prioritize, and I live for me now.
I think I'm still figuring it out.
Okay.
Because I think there's been several times where I thought I figured it out, and guess what? I didn't.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying earlier. I think that self-work is a never-ending battle, right? And I think that there's never going to be a time that I found my purpose. Right now, I think I know my purpose. I think I'm in a great spot right now. I finally got through the low point, and I'm fucking swinging.
Yeah.
But guess what? There's more to come. I'm sure I'll go through low points again and high points.
Yeah.
And my purpose will change. One day I'll be a father. And then my purpose will change from being a businessman to being the most amazing father and the absolute opposite of what my father was.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where I think my purpose is going to come in. And I think it's constantly evolving.
No, totally. No, listen, I like that. And I like how you mentioned these milestones have been where they
chapters in your book.
The trajectory of what you...
I'll tell you something.
What's up?
One of the biggest chapters I missed, sorry to cut you off, perhaps the biggest turning point in my life. I was at my grandparents' house in Boca Raton, Florida. It was after my mom died. It was December 1st. I was sitting there with my cousin Lyle, who lives in Long Island. He's one of my favorite people in the world. And we're smoking pot together. And I said, Lyle, I don't know what the fuck is happening to me. I'm going down a terrible path. My mom's dead. I'm living with grandma and grandpa, and I am fucking killing myself. I don't care about school. I don't want to be here. What should I do? He said, Austin, you need to go live with one of your uncles. December 6th, I went and lived with my Uncle Carrie. Or January 6th, whatever it was, I lived with my Uncle Carrie. And that conversation with my cousin Lyle changed my life. I'll never forget it. We were sitting outside of my grandparents' house on the rocker. Nobody ever sat on the rocker, but we were sitting on the rocker. It was like that. You ever see those picnic tables? They were like on the sliding rockers.
Yeah.
They had one in their house. I don't know why they had that. And I'll never forget that, man. That conversation, I'd say that was the biggest turning point of my life that I've ever experienced. Because without that moment in my life, I wouldn't be here. So thanks, weed. Thanks, Lyle. Yeah. Smoking pot made me a sharper gentleman.
Well, my other question was very I guess subjective. Also, given your answer, I don't even
ask it.
I'll ask it. But what would you say to someone who's struggling to really chart a path?
Oh, I mean, listen, I can answer that for sure because I'm going through it.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I figured it out, but listen, control what you can control.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier for me to sit up here and tell you that than for me to do it.
So often.
So much easier.
Yeah, dude.
Right. But the reality is take your time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and be the person that you want to be. If people judge you, fuck them. That's the reality. Be you. Here's the craziest thing and the most amazing thing that I love about myself. Okay. And I'll tell you what it is. And I'm cool if you want to end it after this. I've probably said the word fuck 36 times today. And guess what though? I'm not afraid of people not doing business with me because I curse, because I'm confident in who I am, Adam. And that is a journey that everybody needs to go down. Was Rome built in a day? Absolutely not. Yeah. When I first got started in this business or in life, okay, but more specifically business in this example, I used to wear a suit every single day. I'd go to meetings.
I remember that.
Yeah. And guess what? That wasn't me. I mean, this is even before I knew you. This was really early on in my days. I'd wear a suit and tie, cufflinks, the whole thing. Guess what? That wasn't me. That was me pretending to be someone I wasn't. And if it wasn't for this journey that I went down, and I didn't take it day by day, because at that time I did not take it day by day. Yeah. I was like, let's fucking full go, speed ahead, 38 times now. The reality is you'll grow into who you need to be.
Yeah.
And your stories are just getting written. So put the pen down and let the story write themselves.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. Can you just let my audience know how they can reach you, any projects that you're working on, any networking events you guys are putting together? And dude, yeah, thank you so much. Let me
answer the question first. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Listen, I'm not here for the cheap plug. You want to buy insurance? I'm your guy. You want some help along the way? I'd love to help you. You can follow me on Instagram at Austin Glazer. You can buy insurance from me because we will help you live a safer life at Safe Shield Insurance. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Love that.